Leadership and learning are indispensable. These were words said by J.F. Kennedy. I'm your host, Fancy, and I'm looking forward to have an interactive session around youth leadership in our country and beyond. With me today is a guest who is a political analyst, a strategist, a consultant, and a founder of Radical Movements and former students leader. His name is CK.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Karibu sana.
I appreciate for having me.
Thank you. You can start by telling us who is CK.
I think you have told me already who CK is, and I appreciate because that is more like it. But I would say, yeah, as you can see, I'm a young man. I don't know. I was just coming from a meeting, and we really had a heated debate with people because most people are saying I'm 27 years old, which is not correct. I am old, actually old enough. So I'm 30 years old, not 27, from Murang'a County. And I've been having serious interest in politics. Yeah. And it's something we'll discuss because it's a journey that in my youthful days, though I'm still a youth, I never thought is an area I would pursue. But otherwise, as you said, I'm a former student leader at Mount Kenya University, leading the student association as president of the association in all our 13 campuses, including one in Kigali, Rwanda, Tanzania, and South Sudan. I've also worked in political offices. For the last 5 years, I've been working with the Honorable Ndindi Nyoro, MP for Kiharu, as his personal assistant. Then I've also worked with the UDA party, which for your information is the ruling party. As part of the founder members, I've also worked in the National Elections Board as a assistant director elections. And I was also being sent on so many errands, especially to do with the political strategy for candidates. I have consulted for so many candidates who are in the current assembly, both at National Assembly, Senate, Governor, because at my young age, I have been able to identify that as an area of strength. And I must finish by saying that I have found a passion. I have found something I love doing in politics, in leadership, and in shaping the political arena of our country. So I'm glad to be here today and to share with you maybe my journey and a few insights that I might have as regards our political terrains.
Thank you for that. You've mentioned you've been a student leader.
Yeah.
What was it like when you were pursuing the journey of being a leader? Which are the hurdles you encountered?
Well, I think one of my most nostalgic journeys is my journey to being a student leader. Because number one, as I mentioned, growing up, I didn't know that I was actually a leader. As a matter of fact, if leaders would have been anybody who desired or thought was a leader, would have been called out. I think I would never have lifted my hand in that arena. And as a young parent, it's actually something that I'm learning about, identifying the strengths in our children and being deliberate about helping them. Because somebody once said that beyond the dust, if you dig deeper, there is gold. You know, if you look at where we are seated, there is grass and there is soil and dust. If you dig deeper, you probably find water. But if you continue and dig even deeper, you find more precious things. So the shallower it is, the more useless, if I use that word, whatever you find is. So reflecting back at my journey in primary school and in high school, I was always called a ring leader because sometimes I was told, I'm leading students to not do this. I would be called a cheerleader because I was in the cheering squad for our school football teams and all that. Yeah. But you see, it never appeared to me or to the teachers or to anyone else that actually a ring leader is first of all a leader. But probably exercising their leadership in the wrong field, which could be because nobody has been able to mentor them in the right way. I was always appearing in the noisemakers list in our class because I'm a talkative person. I think later on I came to learn there are things called temperaments. Probably I'm a sanguine. That's why I had something to say, and I always wanted to say something. And sometimes, I would tell the prefect, just write my name so that I talk, because I can't survive without talking, just like fish cannot survive without water. I didn't know one day I would be paid actually for talking. So until I cleared high school, I didn't know I was a leader in the context of what people refer as leadership. I came to university, but immediately I came to university, I was selected by members of my class to be a class rep of the course that we were pursuing. And later on, I realized we were having common units, and when we went for the common units, again, people wanted me to represent them as a class rep for the school. So I ended up becoming a school rep. That is in my first year in school, and it started occurring to me that people see something in me that I hadn't thought of before. Then after studying for just the first year, I was not able to continue because of school fees issues. So I took an academic leave, but I realized something fancy. I had left home because there were difficulties. So I had so many options in my head, but going back home was not one of them. So I hung around within the school. I was not going to class. I started being enterprising, selling beads, necklaces. I learned a lot of things within that period. There's a day I would sit just near the school gate and I would look at ladies walking. And I think out of every 10 ladies, 7 were wearing something that I had made with my hands, either an earring, a bangle, beads or something. There had to be some people wearing something I had made with my hands, which are skills that I gained during my time out of school. But within the same period, something interesting happened. I realized during exam time, there are parents who are not able to pay school fees on time, but by the deadline or the last days, they get the money and they are able to pay for their children. So one thing would happen. At this time, you need an exam card for you to sit for your exams, and at the same time, you need to revise and prepare for your exams. So most students would be torn in between creating time to go and do the long queues to have the exam cards printed and stamped, and revising. So I realized that was I do at that time, and there was nothing better I was doing. So I would tell students, you know what, there is no need of wasting time in a queue, and I can queue for you anyway at no cost. While you revise, because you have an exam, I don't have an exam. I would find other people, somebody has paid 55,000 out of 60. Then they are told you cannot sit for exams because of 5,000. So I would go to the school administration, to the finance departments, and fight for these guys. I was not doing that because I had thought of leadership or anything. I was doing that because 1, I was idle. 2, they were fearing confrontation with the school administration. Least they expelled. But then I was already expelled by my financial status, so there was no other expulsion that I would await. So by virtue of that, by the time the next election was coming, some people started advising me, why don't you vie for academic affairs? Because academic affairs involved representing people in that area, fighting for people who have balances to sit for the exams, because eventually they will pay, and helping people, removing the bureaucracies around getting an exam card, getting it stamped, and all those kind of things. So for the first time in 2015, I decided there was nothing to lose in vying. So I vied for academic affairs, docket. It was challenging because I made that decision about a month to election. I didn't have finances. I wasn't very popular with a lot of people, but I was a very common figure in the Christian Union. So at least I was banking on the congregation. When you see the whole food, you imagine everybody will vote for you. But it's also an impediment I came across because I realized most believers want places they are in to be governed by God-fearing people, but they do not believe in electing people who are God-fearing. So it's one of the challenges I found, They will say, When the righteous are in power, people rejoice. But when they go to vote, when you go campaigning as a righteous person or as a person who is in the church, you will be castigated for mixing politics and Christianity. So, long story short, I vied, I failed. But remember, I was only vying because I felt there was nothing for me to lose. I didn't even know there were benefits in my head.
Yeah.
But something happened. The person who won with about 1,100 votes. And I got 1,000 plus votes. So I was defeated with about a margin of 90 votes only.
Yeah.
Let me tell you, Fancy. Everybody was sympathizing with me that I lost. But the happiest person on earth at that particular time was myself. Because one, I never thought that people can actually queue in a line
To vote for you.
Educated people, people who have gone to some of the best schools, then come to university, they queue and vote for me.
Yeah.
I didn't believe that people saw leadership in me. 1,000 plus people voting for me. I think that was a life-changing moment for me, because I realized that yes, people can actually see something in me. People actually believe in me. People can actually vote for me. So the next year, I started behaving like a leader. I started acting like a leader. I started championing causes in the school more boldly, because I realized there are more people who believe in what I do, who are impressed by what I do, and who actually support what I do. So I became more bold. And the next election, I decided I'm not even going to vie for this academic affairs docket. Why not be the president? So I vied for president. Of course, there are numerous challenges, financial, because you are in campus, you find all nature of people who come from very wealthy families. I had to do a fundraising at home, and we raised 100,000. I needed 60,000 for school fees and accommodation, some more. So I realized the amount I raised could not even take me for a semester, because that was only school fees and for one term and maybe accommodation and something else. So I told myself, if I take this money and pay in the school account, I'll be in class for one semester, and from there,
You're done.
there's no future. I'm done. I cannot do another Hanambe. I've been working. I'm not able to raise enough for a semester by the time a semester ends.
Yeah.
The other alternative was I campaign, use this money as my seed capital in my campaigns, vie. If I fail, well and good. If I win, I have a chance to transform my life. So I took all my life savings, my contribution from the Harambe. I only shared that with my pastor, who had given me a facility at home, who had also lobbied the members of the congregation to attend my Harambe and fundraise for me. She's the only person I told honestly that, honestly, I wouldn't want you to hear this and be disappointed, but I'm not intending to use the money for school fees, because anyway, I don't think it will sustain me. So she gave me her blessings and told me, I understand you, and if you feel you are convicted to take that line, I'll support you, but we cannot tell the congregation, because they will think we are not responsible. Yeah, they will think the pastor is not responsible, and I'm also not an honest person. But by the grace of God, I was able to win. I was able to win. I not only won, but that win made me realize that one, again, it affirmed that people have confidence and they see leadership in me. And number two, it made me realize that I'm actually a political strategist, because I didn't win because of too much finances. I won because of what I would call a good strategy. And of course, the grace of God, a good strategy. Because by the time the first person was being admitted this first year, they found me in school.
Wow.
By the first night, the only person freshers knew in school was me. By the second night, I had created a WhatsApp group for all freshers, which no other continuing student was in except me. So they only had one source of information.
You.
Me. So any information I gave them was gospel truth, because they didn't have any other method of verifying. They didn't know any other bigger person, more superior. They didn't know any other continuing student apart from me.
Yeah.
So I remember those people were so inspired to campaign for me for nothing that one day a fresher came and knocked on my door, found me in my house, told me, we have come here, sent by Karondo, we are coming to campaign for him, he's a good guy. He literally tried to convince me to vote for myself.
In yourself.
Because I was so convinced in they had bought my agenda such that they were willing to campaign for me for free, even without some of them knowing me in person, because of what we were speaking in their groups.
Wow.
So it's also taught me that I am a political strategist, which is something that I have built into now in my other journey in politics.
Wonderful. Now, I want to take you back to your story. You vied for the academic affair seat.
Yes.
And you failed. How did you redeem yourself? You didn't. Why didn't you give up at that point and say, I failed? I've been around people who have failed in politics, and those people get depressed. It's not an easy thing to be declared a failure, especially in such a public, in a public position. How did you redeem yourself?
I think, Fancy, life is not something that is cast on stone. Life is about how we perceive it. And through my few years of study, there are some things that I have learned and come to appreciate about life.
Yeah.
One is that if you allow people and their opinion to define your processes and outcome of your process and things you engage in, they might give you a wrong impression of your outcome. Because sometimes, for example, when I vied for academics, I had never competed for any other serious position before. I had never had people queue in the line to vote for me before. So 1,000+ people, university students voting for me was ideally a win, not a loss.
Sure.
But to a person who does not understand my history, who does not understand what it means to get 1,000 people riding behind you, is failure. Because for them, they only see number one and number two, and for them, anybody who is not number one has failed. So if you allow yourself to follow people in that path of seeing yourself as a failure, then you will look at everything as failing. John C. Maxwell, he has actually written a book called Sometimes We Win, Sometimes we learn, not lose. So there's no losing.
Yeah.
There's learning. For example, when I vied for that, for the academic affairs docket, I was able to win the next time I vied, actually in a bigger position, because of the lessons that I learned when I vied for the first time. I was able now to familiarize myself with the political demographics of Mount Kenya University. I was able to know who influences who does what. Things that I would otherwise have not learned if I was not vying. Even if I was supporting somebody else, probably I would not have learned some of those things. Then I knew where I got it wrong and where I needed to change, what people had a problem with. I knew who was truly, I was able now to judge motives, to know who is after what I have, who is after this and the other thing. So in life, what I would really say is that if we are positive, we are able to appreciate the fact that whenever things don't go the way we intended them to go, it doesn't mean we lose. It only means that we have a chance to learn. It only means we have a chance to learn. So I wouldn't say there was getting myself back up on my feet, because I didn't allow myself to go down in the first place.
Okay.
Number two, most people go into competitions rigid. And anytime you are going into a competition, while it is very difficult to come into reality with the reality of things, you have to accept that if you are entering into a competition, that you have chances of either winning or losing. No matter how promising your win is, or no matter how discouraging you feel, just know that you can either win or lose. And if you allow yourself and come into terms with that fact, then the outcome will not surprise you. So as I was vying for that position, One, I knew that if I fail, as I told you, I had already told myself that if I fail, then there's nothing much for me to lose, because anyway, my life is, I already feel my life is at the lowest I can be. But if I win, I have a chance. But you see, that means I have already prepared myself psychologically that I can either win or lose. So what I would tell people is, anytime you are getting into any, and not only a competition, anytime you are taking any step in life, you know, today we are in a show. We are, after you do this show, you release this. The moment you go live, you can either get people or not. The moment you do an interview like this, people can either like it or dislike. So if you do it with a fixed mind that people have to like it, if they dislike, you think you are the problem. And sometimes you're not the problem. It is the people who are the problem. Yeah? There is a day you greet somebody and they respond negatively. But it's because they are coming from, they're having problems wherever they are coming from. So if you're not careful, you think you are the one who has a problem, that's why the person has not responded. So I think for me, it's about the mindset. You know, we have to have a winning mindset. We have to have a mindset of appreciating outcomes as they come. So that helped me. That's what helped me.
Wow.
Yeah.
Now, looking at your journey, the leadership journey at school, I can see that's where you got your first-hand experience.
Yeah.
You became a strategist.
Yes.
A strategy that made you be the person you are. Could this be the, could this be behind the movement you formed, radical movement?
Absolutely, absolutely. Yeah, first of all, as you mentioned there, I'm a founder, together with a friend of mine called Dennis Itumbi, of a movement called Radical. We did not boast of founding or owning that movement, because it's a movement that we came up together as a group of young people. But what propelled us to make that decision was the fact that when I was a student leader, for example, there's a time we visited the governor, Murang'a County, the governor then, and we asked him, how far are you with the program of youth empowerment? And we were told the programs that are going on in terms of youth empowerment and all those kind of things. But then when I left, I asked, we had vast discussions, in depth. A lot of promises were made. But then when we left, I asked one of my friends, now that we've had all that discussion, how do we hold this leader and other leaders to account? How do we actually authenticate? How do we hold accountable leaders if we do not have data, proving that the promises that have been made have been kept? For example, when the government says you've created 1 million jobs, can we trace those 1 million people who have been employed? Because 1 million jobs means 1 million people employed. What is your siafu that you cannot be able to count?
Yeah.
If you tell me that we've created 1 million jobs in Murang'a County, out of the 1,000 young people I know, none of them has been employed. I mean, then I am left wondering, where are you getting these 1 million people from? Because even if you were to do a random sampling, then at least out of the 1,000 I know, one person would at least have been affected, or 2 or 10 or 100. So I said our slogan in Radical is nothing for us without us. So we were saying you cannot, government has been organizing for us before. We are called for a meeting in a hotel in Nairobi, a 5-star. You go to the meeting, find old men, old in cabs, old government officials, very well paid, in very lucrative positions, with very good allowances for the day, seated for a meeting that is meant to come and discuss youth and employment
agendas
and youth agendas. So they get you from campuses. You are given allowances of 1,000 Wow, they are given allowances of 10, 20, even 100,000 for a sitting. Then you are told to sit down and listen to them. It's a youth meeting, chaired by old people, organized by old people, benefits being enjoyed by old people. Then you listen to the old people, they give you allowances, you go back home, and there was a youth discussion. So that's why I said, now, that is something about us, without us.
Yeah.
So that's why I said we need to, as we support the government that we were supporting, which is now the government of the day, we had our resolution that there will be nothing for us without us. We want to actively participate in campaigns, actively participate in discussions pre and post elections, so that as the national cake is being shared, then we'll also have a place in the table. We don't only want to be served, we want to be part and parcel of the people who will be there in the sharing of the national cake. And I am a proud member of Radical as I sit here today and say that like now part of our founding members, 15 who were the committee that sat and founded and came up with that initial idea. I think I am the only one who is yet to get a job. Everyone else, some are nominated MCAs, others are working in government offices, others are in good positions. We are getting our spaces in government, in this government. I can confidently say we have a space some are in members of National Assembly because they decided to go that path, and we supported them, we campaigned for them, we rallied our support behind them. And I am saying I'm the only person who is left, and I'm very happy saying that. Because being the leader, when everybody else has benefited, then at least you also know that whatever you are championing for is working. And I am not, when I say I'm the only one who has not benefited, not that I have not gotten opportunities. Only that maybe I've been given an opportunity that I feel is being served. And we were not fighting so that we can be served. We were fighting so that we can be the one who are serving others.
Sure.
Yeah.
Sure.
So that's the principle behind Radical. And yes, we wanted not only to strategize for other people, but also strategize for ourselves as a young people and strategize for our generation. Because every generation is responsible for their own generation and for the generation that comes after them. So we are responsible for this generation and the generation that will come after us.
Okay. That brings us to our next question. How can one join Radical, and who qualifies to be in Radical movement?
Radical is an open group, and I say open because just like political parties are, though it's not a political party, is a youth lobby. It's not a lobby group, but it's a youth movement. And you know, a movement is not something that's restricted. It's a rallying call that anybody can join. And the reason at any given time you've not heard us say this is a Radical chairman or this is a Radical, we said we do not want those bureaucratic positions. What we have is Radical champions. Meaning, today, fancy, you can decide to be Radical champion for your county. You can decide to be Radical champion for women. You can decide to be Radical champion for your institution. So we do not really have bureaucracies that, you know, to join Radical, you have to come and see so and so, then pay this and this, or do this and this to be a member. It's an organic group. We want people to own the movement, you know, own the movement, create your own spaces. The only thing that we encourage people to do is, if you want to create your own space as an institution, you want to start Radical in Mount Kenya University, you want to start Radical in Kajiado, Radical in Turkana. The only thing we encourage is get in touch with any of us, especially among the founding members, so that now we are able to offer you the support that you need. And we are also able to get you well acquainted with our agenda, so that then you do not go and start a Radical movement in your area and convert it into something different. There is a time guys in Kieleweke had branded us into a militia and all those kind of things because of the word Radical. But you know what they didn't understand? When we talk about Radical, we are not talking about Radical in the sense of in the direct meaning of a radical person in English. But there's also another meaning to the word radical with a CO at the end, which means a group of people within a political outfit or a political organization who champion for a revolution or who champion for a change in policy, for a change in the way the political outfits see and view their things. So we were a movement within the UDA party or the Kenya Kwanza movement and the Kenya Kwanza coalition that was just trying to come to sensitize and to make sure that Kenya Kwanza and UDA government does not become just like any other political outfit. You know, in the other regime you saw youths campaigning, but then elderly women ends up being nominated, girlfriends of people ends up being nominated as MCAs and all that. At least today and this time, we cannot completely and 100% rule out that we do not have some few people who maybe were nominated through devious means. But at least I know you and other people listening to us can confidently say that in our county, we know so-and-so who is a young person, a young lady, a young man who did not have political godfathers but was very active in the campaign, and they were nominated. I have people personally who we met in the campaigns and we were able to push, and they are in the county assemblies nominated. Not because they had godfathers, but because they put in the work in the campaigns. So what we wanted was because we were confident that UDA and Kenya Kwanza would win these elections. We were confident because we were really invested in the campaigns. But we wanted to make sure that the youth and the young people of this country and our generation are not left out. It doesn't have to be me, but let us have representation of our generation in the government. Whoever that person is, as long as they take care of our generation and the next generation, I'm okay. I'll support them. I'll be behind them.
Right. I'm actually very proud of the sitting government because it was the only government, I think, so far, since I'm able to look at things, I can identify with young people. We have I think now it's the time we have Toto. Toto is only 24 years old. And that is one thing that I love about UDA. They gave her a ticket and made it easier for her to get in the office. And we've seen many other young people that were nominated. So we can say the government has given a chance to the young leadership. What do you think? Are we still there, or we need to push further?
I would say we are not yet there because, and I do not criticize the government, but at the same time I am, and it's one thing I appreciate about our current government. We have a president, a deputy, and the entire government structure that is that gives us space to exercise our democracy and to speak our mind. So if I am to give my opinion, I would say that though we have championed for that, one, I would congratulate Wanjiko or the Kenyan voter, because if there is somebody who has proven to have confidence in the young people in this country, is a Kenyan voter.
Sure.
Because most of the leaders who are given tickets were given tickets because the Kenyan voter showed their approval in terms of nominations. UDA happened to have one of the biggest nominations so far in the country. It's a nomination that I was in charge of. And it also happened to have the fairest nominations that have ever been conducted in this country so far, and probably even in our region as a country. So Wanjiko, or the Kenyan voter, has proved beyond reasonable doubt that they are very deliberate to give the young people a chance. If you look at our National Assembly, we have so many elected young leaders, Senate, governors. We have very many young leaders who have been elected. And I'm proud because most of them have proven that once given an opportunity, they can deliver. They have not disappointed. You go to a place like Kiharu, where we were working with Mheshimiwa Dene Nyoro, elected at 30 years old, given another chance at 7 years old. Parliamentarians, some old, some in their fifth term, are coming to benchmark in such a constituency. And we have so many other, Akina Kemani Shongo, who are also elected very young. People are going to benchmark there. So people are not actually even going to benchmark in constituencies that have been led by the longest serving members of parliament, but areas that are being led by young people. So Wanjiko, I congratulate Wanjiko. He has given young people an opportunity. And I also allowed my colleagues, the young people who have been given positions because hawajatuangusha. When it comes to our government, I am happy that the president has showed a lot of confidence in young people. During campaigns, you know, he gave us opportunities to express ourselves, to show our capacities, to even he was very accommodative to our ideas, and we appreciate that. But we still have a long way to go, because when the list of cabinet secretaries was being read out, we didn't get a single young person in that list. And while we speak about experience, it's okay to say that we cannot entrust a very young person to be a cabinet secretary because of experience. But you know, when you look world over, we have seen countries entrust very young people with very serious positions. Some of the most celebrated presidents of the United States were elected at very young age, 30s and 40s. And again, if we do not give young people opportunities, which is usually my argument, where will they gain the experience?
True.
We have seen very old people being given cabinet secretaries. They mess. Again, how if Wanjiko can trust a 23-year-old person to be a senator or to be a member of parliament, why is it hard to trust a 30-year person to be a cabinet secretary? Why is it hard? So many arguments may be pitched around that, but I still feel that is not right. That is not proper mentorship. We deserve our spaces. It doesn't have to be me or the other person, but let's get somebody. I mean, the president has latitude. There, in the other regime, we saw President Uhuru Kenyatta give Raphael Tuju a position called CS with no portfolio. So why not get a young person, give them such a position of a CS without portfolio for the sake of apprenticeship and mentorship? Don't even entrust me with anything in particular. Give me a position, allow me to learn. Otherwise, if nobody learns, then nobody will ever get there. So I feel that on that line, we can do better. When the list of the PSS came out, we can still do better. Yes, of course, we have a few young people there. We appreciate. But I still feel we can do better. Out of 51, we can do better from the number that we have. We already have a list of CISs going around. From the shortlisting, even before the positions are shared out, we are not content. We are not content. We can do better. And especially a position like CIS. What would the former governor of Nairobi be doing, even being shortlisted in a list of CISs? CISs are ni watu wa mkono wa cabinet secretaries. So at least, I think if the president sought my advice, I would actually say he would have taken 20 young people, attached each behind, because of course he appointed ministers on basis of experience. So you have an experienced minister of finance. So why don't you take a young person then who you want to mentor and make them an assistant?
Sure.
So that by the time Professor Njogona is retiring, he's already past retirement age. Then you have mentored someone else.
True.
Otherwise, when we have to go back home and get retired people, like what the other government did of getting Moody Awadi at 88 years to come and serve in government, it's a disgrace. It's a total failure for a generation. So while we appreciate, I still feel we have a long way to go. We truly have a long way to go. We can do better as a country.
Right. We recently saw the UDA appointed Cleophas Malala to be the Secretary General. And he's already pushing an agenda. He wants, he's foreseeing, or rather he would wish, he's recommending we have one party. What is your take on that?
No, first of all, I congratulate my brother Cleophas for being appointed as a Secretary General for the ruling party. And it's among the things that we are celebrating. the fact that we have a young person as a Secretary General.
Sure.
Of course, it's nothing new. There are parties that had set that precedence before. ANC had a young man from my village actually, Gakuru, who is a young person, below 30. Yes, SSG.
Yeah.
But we are glad that we have a young person leading the UDA party. I also completely agree with him on the idea of bringing other parties, you know, to join UDA and we have a single party. And sometimes I see people assume that by championing for having a single party, like maybe we are undoing the gains that our forefathers led by the gallant soldier from my village, Kenneth Matiba, did. But that's not it. Sometimes democracy, I feel that democracy has to come with us with a level of maturity. And as Africans, sometimes we embrace things and we do not, without measuring how far we want to go. It's okay. Our forefathers and those who went ahead of us fought for multi-party democracy. A good thing, brilliant thing. We are enjoying the fruits today. We do not seek to go back to a single party kind of rule. But do you think it makes sense to have 500 parties in a country like Kenya and have 2, 3, 4 parties in a country like United States that's already a developed nation? That in every Tom, Dick and Harry, I mean, if I wanted to convert Radical into a party fancy, I can tell you I don't even need a month. It would already be a political party.
I want
But for what? For what reason?
Yeah.
So I feel we need to, at some point, and that's why I appreciate the new blood that Malala is bringing on board, of saying that let's not have political parties for the sake of having political parties.
Yeah.
Let not everybody who disagrees with the other just form a political party for the sake of having political parties. I actually admire politics of developed nations like the United States, because even from here, we already take sides. You already hear somebody say that I support Democrats in the United States because you have taken time, studied, you know what Democrats stand for, you know what the Republicans stand for. But if I ask you today what, for example, UDA stands for, not many people will tell you what UDA stands for.
Yeah.
The fact that no single Kenyan president has ever been re-elected back in the same party that they vied with after multi-party democracy is very telling. It means that we do not elect people because we believe in the policies, we do not believe in what the party stand for. I mean, every president, they go for the second term with a different party. So they never even believed, as Kenyans, we never even believed in what those parties stand for.
Yeah.
I agree with Cleophas. And I think it's something that has been thought out because you see Cleophas has just moved from ANC. He's among the trusted guys of Musalia Mudavadi. So when he comes and says that it does not make sense for a minister to be serving in a UDA government belonging, yet he belongs to another party, then you can only imagine that is a discussion they've
had before.
They've had before with the party leader of where he's coming from and where he is. But if that is a course I want to take as an individual, I support. I look forward to the day in this country we will have few parties, that we understand what they stand for, that we appreciate what they stand for. And I actually allowed our neighbors in Tanzania. In Tanzania, if you go, everybody knows CCM. Na ukipita nominations za CCM, watu wanajua, for you to be a member of CCM, you believe in this kind of philosophy, you have this kind of attributes. The party has vetted you. You have ideologies. You know, that is one thing that we lack in Kenya. We were in Jubilee, we were in TNA. Ask me what TNA stood for. I don't even know.
You know, I'm laughing because I happen to be involved in the 2017 politics. somebody of interest was vying. And one person made a joke when we were seated somewhere, and he said, today if you want to register a political party, it is even hard to get a symbol than it is.
Yeah, correct. All symbols are taken.
Are taken from fruits,
everything,
to umbrellas,
or animals.
I don't know whether you agree.
Everything is taken. Yeah.
Yeah.
Now even the wheelbarrow is no longer up for grabs. It's also taken.
Interesting. Does it show? I think does it show that we are greedy? Because why do we form these parties?
We have no principles. Our politics is not politics of principle. Because to belong to a political party subscribes to his ideals, have firm ideals that everybody knows, appreciates and adheres to. It requires requires principle. It requires firmness. But we are not principled. Our politics is not a politics of principles. That is why somebody will vie with Jubilee today. You know, if they go and they are denied ticket, tomorrow they will declare that they are in UDA. If they deny tickets, the next day they will become vie as independent. Immediately they are elected. The next day they will be meeting with the ODM, you know, to form an alliance. So it means you do not believe in any of those parties, because those parties do not stand for any ideal. They are just vehicles of convenience and expediency, political expediency. Nothing much. Nothing much. So we do not have principles in our politics and around our politics, and that's why we cannot be able to identify anything that anybody stands for. So I wish, because for example, we campaigned for the UDA party, joined the UDA party, and rallied behind our President William Ruto and his deputy Rigathi Gachagua, because UDA party was founded not on an ethnic basis, but on a promise of economic liberation and freedom. You know, fighting against some of the gains that we felt the former regime were taking us back, you know, and undoing some of those gains we had gained. Freedom of association, freedom of speech, you know, that you cannot be seen with this other person or the other person. But also number two, the freedom, the economic liberation is a liberation that we've been fighting for as a country. And that is what informed the Hasra Nation mantra. For the first time, Kenyans have voted not as people from this region or the other region, but as hustlers. People who identify because they're in a particular economic grouping, they're in a particular economic level, and they feel that there are particular economic and socio-economic barriers that they want to break. So I truly wish that the president is able to build this party, post-elections, build this party, and deliver as a government on the economic liberation that was promised, so that Kenyans then can be able to associate this party with economic liberation and build the party into a strong formation that we can be able to contend with even in the next election. So that anybody else could now come and say, this party promises economic liberation. On our side, we promise social liberation as a frontier. So then we can have a competition that is based on ideologies. It is the only thing, personally, that made me rally behind William Samoei Ruto. We did economic forums. He said that we want to change the conversation around our politics from Mutuetu to economic whatever. That's why we were having discussions like tunataka what do you call this, referendum kwanza ama tunataka uchumi kwanza, you know. So that then pitches two groupings: a group that is after a referendum or constitutional reforms, and a group that is after economic liberation as their first frontier. Not that hawa wenye wanapigania economic liberation hawana haja na constitutional reforms, but you believe in this beyond the other. And that is what, if you go to the US, the Republicans and the Democrats, that is what separates those two groupings. That is what guides people as they make decisions. Because Democrats, believe that socially everybody has a right. That's why one person will come and say, "Sisi, as Democrats, we support LGBTQ and all those other things because we believe in everybody, regardless of their every form of whatever being given an opportunity." Republicans will come and say, "No, Sisi, we are people who believe in status quo. We believe in our culture. We believe in na sio mambo yote ambayo tuna support." But now hapa you find a party calling itself Orange Democratic Movement, but they don't even have nominations. It's not democracy. Yeah. So they don't believe in democracy, but they call themselves Orange Democratic Movement. So where is the democracy? Yeah. So let's get back to that place. I pray and hope, and I pray that in my lifetime, I will see our country move from that nonsense of having 500 parties to a day when we will have a few democratic and parties that are based on principles. Lastly, most of our parties are also just tribal groupings. Wiper ni ya Wakamba. Ingine, there were guys who are moving around telling us the reason you should not join UDA is because Jubilee ndio chama ya Wakikuyu. URP ndio chama ya Wakale. Sijui upya ndio chama ya watu wa wapi. So it's just ODM ndio chama ya Wajaruo. Hii ingine ndio chama ya hawa. So we need to you need to get done with that nonsense. It can't be ati sasa wewe uko na kachama yako yenye kama wewe si wa these three Kamba communities huwezi chaguliwa na hiyo chama mahali pengine. Kama wewe si wa ingine huwezi chaguliwa mahali pengine. So I wish we can be able to build because whatever William is trying to do, our president is trying to do with UDA is something they had already tried to pilot with Jubilee, but some greedy people came in and wakaribu yo. Jubilee tried to achieve the same thing, a national outfit that is not limited by tribal groupings and that kind of things.
Let's cross the borders. When you look even in our neighboring countries, we are not seeing space for youth leadership. A good example is Uganda. What do we call this young Bob something?
Bobi Wine.
Bobi Wine. He really went through a very ruthless journey trying to position himself in the leadership. What's your take on that? Does it mean our elder people are so greedy, they don't want to let the leadership to the young, they want to stay there until they die in those positions? Or what is your take?
I think one thing we must appreciate as a country is that where sometimes I actually say, and I'm never shy to say this, that our democracy is even older than us. Our democracy is even more mature than ourselves. We actually trying to catch up with our democracy. We have a lot of liberties and freedoms in the country, and we've grown to an extent that most of our neighbors have not been able to. We pity some of our neighbors like Uganda, and not only Uganda, so many of our other neighbors are not doing well. Because we have a challenge of leadership in Africa, because African leaders do not want to let go of leadership. As a matter of fact, if they were to be asked, it's death that would separate them from power. And that's why you see in our country, a governor serves 2 terms. They have served as an MP, they have served as an MCA, but they still don't want to. They cannot bring themselves, to a time when they'll say it's now time to get quit. Some people are even going home in humiliation while they had a chance to quit because they've served long enough. And were it not for our democracy, even our former president didn't show any signs of wanting to go home. actually was finding every means of remaining in power through unorthodox means and through constitutional change and those other kind of things. Fortunately enough, as I've said, our democracy is very mature, that it has become almost impossible to undo some of those gains that those who went ahead of us fought for and paid a very great price for. Unfortunately, in places like Uganda, I think they have not gotten people who who are ready to invest and to pay the price to get them out of that bondage. That's why when a person like Bobby Wine comes out, remember Bobby Wine is not the first. Before Bobby Wine, there was Kizza Besigye, who almost died. But you can tell the support he was receiving from Ugandans was not sufficient for him to win that battle. And if Ugandans do not rally and give Bobby Wine the support, he'll also get to some point and tire, just like Besigye did. Or, everybody has an elasticity limit, get to his limit. We hear that now Museveni wants to retire and hand over to his son. The wife is already a minister. The son is already a commander of the army. You go to Rwanda and other states around, it's not different. So it's a problem that is there. Unfortunately, we do not have the full capacity to interfere with the issues of our neighbors. We have barely managed to sort our very own issues. But now that we have bodies like the East African Community, AU, and other bodies, I think there should also be regulations that will help some of these states. Not really with an intention to interfere with their internal matters, because of course we cannot. We do not have mandate. But also help them and support them to be able to liberate themselves. Kwa sababu ni kutoka kwa ukoloni mnaingia kwa ukoloni mambo leo. You just move from a white colonizer to a black colonizer. But you are still colonized. Sasa sijui kwa sababu Maumau hawako, I don't know whether we gather the sons of Maumau tuwatumie waenda wawapatie backup huko or what happens. Lakini wako na shida kidogo. So it's a problem. African leaders are not ready. The things we see in developed countries, leaders quitting job when they feel they are not in capacity or where there are challenges. We see people like Barack Obama retiring when he's quite young, supporting the next government, and going on with life normally. But African, because of the atrocities some have committed, murders, grabbing of public money, they know the only way they can be safe is if they are in power.
To remain in power.
Yeah.
Leadership is a challenge to young people. I have realized we perceive leadership as people being in position. But leadership starts with us, knowing how to manage ourselves. What would you tell young people in matters of leadership? From personal management to the highest level of leadership.
I think people confuse leadership to having titles. And it's one thing to have a title, it's another thing to be a leader. Actually, there's a book by Robin Sharma called The Leader Without a Title. And he mentions to identify, if you go to any grouping, anywhere there are 10 people converged, and let's say there is even the structure of leadership in that group, most often than not, you find that the actual leader of that group is not the person who holds the position. If you ask those 10 people to do something, there's that one person who, if they accept, the rest of the members will accept. There's that person who, even the holders of the title or the office holders cannot be able to move agendas without making sure that they're in tandem with this one person, or they bring them on board, then that is the leader of that group. They might not hold the title, they might not hold the office, but they are the leader of that group.
They are the drivers.
They are the drivers. John C. Maxwell says leadership is influence. And influence means you have followers. You influence people to follow you towards a particular cause. So that person who influences people, and he goes ahead and says, if you think you're a leader and you look back and there's nobody following you, then you're just taking a walk in the park. You're not leading because you have no followers. So to lead is to show direction. And to show direction, I perceive it this way, that even before you move out of yourself, you know, a human being is made up of different components that sometimes do not work in tandem. You have your heart, you have your brain, you have your body. You know, Paul in the Bible would say, the spirit is willing, but the body is not able. So there is something that the spirit was willing to do, but he could not bring his body to be able to do that. You know, there are mistakes that you make and you feel that, you know, like there's another quote I saw, somebody was asking that when you are falling in love, should you use your hair, your brain, or your heart, or even your body?
Yeah.
And somebody commented and said, use your heart, but make sure you tag your brain along. Because of course the body has to be there. So leadership at personal level, first of all, is you have to master how to lead yourself, to control yourself. Because the decisions that are made, that we make on day to day, are informed by our capacity to control ourselves. It is not easy. When we talk about personal development, it means developing ourselves, developing our brain. To develop your brain, then you need to study. Yeah? Studying is not something that is enjoyable to most people. Actually, almost to all people. It's something that you have to be deliberate about. When you have a chance to watch a movie, but you decide instead of watching a movie, you read a book. You know, when you have a chance to go to and take your favorite drink in a joint, but you decide to go to a self-development class or to take a self-development class, is something that requires a lot of control, a lot of being deliberate, a lot of taking charge. You lead your brain into accepting to follow the path that you want to pursue, or the path that you feel is a path that will lead to where you want to go. Same thing with your heart. So I believe the first form of leadership is personal leadership. That means taking captive your three components and being able to manage them and being able to live life not accidentally but deliberately. You know, I am here because I deliberately intended to be here, not because of peer pressure, not because it was emotive to do so, not because it was just convenient, or, you know, I am deliberate about being here. You are speaking the way you are speaking, you know the things you know, not because you found yourself in knowledge way and you found that you know that thing, but because you are deliberate about knowing it. You do the things you do because you've practiced. Yeah? So that is the first form of leadership in my own school of thought. And that is what we call leading yourself. Number two, the next set of people who becomes your follower, if you are a family man, for example, or a mother, then you have to lead these people who are within your reach, these people who are dependent on you. Because then, as a man, I am the leader of my family. How then can I purport to be a leader if I cannot show direction to my children? If I cannot show direction to my family, my wife, you know, my parents, my siblings. So you start leadership in that basic level. And starting leadership doesn't mean having success. I can try to show leadership to my family, and maybe my brothers or some of my relatives do not follow me. Doesn't mean that I'm not a leader just because some people are not following me. The president of Kenya today is elected by less than half, actually almost a quarter of the registered voters, and even way less if you compare with the population of the country. 7-8 million out of 50 million. Just because those others did not elect him, did not follow him, doesn't make him less of a president or less of a leader. So leading your family doesn't mean that everyone is following the path that you want them to follow. Show leadership, let people choose not to. Because just because I say leadership is influence and having followers, doesn't mean the entire crowd will follow me. But at least I have a considerable number of people who believe in the vision, who believe I can actually show them the way, who believe I know the way, or even if I don't know, they know that I'll somehow find a way to get there. And in politics, when I'm strategizing for political leaders, I tell them when you're in office, especially when seeking the election, and not only for political leaders, even pastors and all others, if you want to gauge your leadership, for example, if I went to a gathering of 100 people, I spoke to them, and then after finishing, and people disperse, nobody comes to me to ask a question, to ask for assistance, to consult. They do not see the leader in me. So matter of fact, I tell them, if you're a member of parliament, tuenda mkutano na wewe tumalize, watu wakuje kuniomba basadi ama kuniomba usaidizi na uko hapo, just know I am their de facto leader now. They are already done. So leadership, you do not have to have a title. You do not need to have a title to be a leader. You do not need to have a designated office to be a leader. Yeah? You just need to be a person who, and when you package yourself, when you take leadership of yourself, when people listen to you and they feel that you know what you're saying, they feel your words are measured. Yeah? You speak from a point of information. When people look at you and they see you have emotional intelligence, yeah, you don't just react for the sake of reacting. You take your time. They will follow you.
Well, as we conclude, I want to thank you for gracing our show. It has been insightful. We've really learned from you, and I'm sure young people will pick so many insights from your journey. You have a beautiful journey, and we know you are going far. We are looking forward to host you more again and again. I know you are a powerhouse. I call such people powerhouse because you have so much to share. I'm sure we've not exhausted. We are not even quarterway. Okay? So we're looking forward to host you again and again.
And if you have enjoyed, I encourage you to be back, to look forward for more episodes with more people, more to learn. I'll also be here shedding much more on other aspects of my life and my journey. In the meantime, and for more of this, please like, share, and subscribe to Fancy Talk Show.